Hello guys, Samar on this side, back again with new tutorial video. In this video, we are going to learn about the most important topic not only on the Flutter but any kind of mobile application development, that is deal with the local storage. We can store some of the most important data of user or any app kind of related information in the mobile local storage, and we can utilize that. So let's see how can we do with that Flutter. So in case you know, in the last video we talked about a first project of the series in Flutter. We built a tic-tac-toe game to learn about how the project is going to look like in case of Flutter. In the second last video of that series, we ended up here about using understanding of different methods, how the method work, and function and method, different kind of parameter and its definition and declaration. Okay, now I can start from here. I can remove all of the things here so that I can tell you what is the requirement of the local storage. Okay, so what I want to do, I want to remove all of the things here. Okay, now we can write here scaffold, and under the scaffold we can give a background color that will be colors.white, and a body having a container and particular width and size taking of the device. Okay, so what I can do here, yeah, and I can make it status bar icon brightness is dark so that the status bar will be so So if I now make a hot reload in the terminal with its new form, now we can hide the terminal, and let's focus here. Okay, now as usual we have to make a floating action button. So give a child here about icon and icons, add. Okay, and give a color here also, colors.white, and give a size of 30. Now if I in the terminal hot reload it, the floating action button is arrived there, and what we have to do, when we click on here, a number will be increased, so we have to make that. Text style having the font size of 35 and font weight of bold. Now if I hot reload it here, you can see the number 0 here. So what happened, when we click on that button, the number will be getting increased. So number plus performing hot reload, and when I click here, now number is getting increased. Okay, now the problem is that when I want to hot restart here, the number is coming to the initial point, that is 0. We declared it the variable here. Okay, now the thing is that if we want to see only the last state of the number when we hot restarted it, just like I increased here up to 10. Okay, now if I hot restart here, you can see that number will be come back to 0 because the trajectory will be building from the scratch. Okay, but the thing is that I just want to do that whenever I want to do the hot restart or opening the app from the scratch after closing that project, that will be show the last state we achieved, that is the last number we achieve in that case. How can we do that? Many of the people will say we can do that through the state management in case of the hot restart, but when we want to terminate the project, just like I want to show you an example, I just increase the number here in 10, and if I want to close the project and I want to run the project again, we will not receive that number 10. So let's see what we can receive. So the number is 10 is showing here. So when the project is open after it getting totally terminated, so let's see what it is showing. It probably show the number 0, and because the widget tree is building from the scratch, and when the widget tree is building from the scratch, the number is 0, so that's why it is showing 0. But I want to persist the state that I achieved in the last time. Just like I achieved here 2, and I want to see that 2 when we hot restart in that app, or when the app is terminated and we are reopening the app. We want to show the last state of the app. How can we do that? So for that we have to deal with the local storage. So what we can do, whatever the last state will be achieved in our Flutter app, we can store in the local storage of the mobile device, and when state is required to show the user, then we can get back the state from the local storage. That's the main thing of using the local storage. Okay, so how can we do we can deal with the local storage in case of Flutter. So for dealing with the local storage, there is many more option. You can use with the SQLite to store in the local storage, but that's a very much big thing to deal with, because there is, you have to make a database, then under that there is a table, and under the table you have to run the command of the SQL query to store the data. It's a very much long process. Sometimes that's kind of long process is not good enough to do that things. So for that there is a package available in pub.dev named as SharedPreferences. So SharedPreferences actually helpful to store your data instantly with a single line of code in the local storage, and you can get the data from the local storage with single or maximum 2 lines of code. That's it. So that's the work of SharedPreferences, helps us to do that thing. So how can we use that package? Very easy. You have to go to the installing section, then you have to copy the latest version with the package name. Now after coming back here, as I said in previous video of that series, in case of some packages, if you install in the runtime and want to run it, it may not be worth, because that there is required some native level configurations. So what you have to do, you have to just terminate your project, and after terminating your project you have to go to the prospect.yaml. Under that prospect.yaml, come under the dependencies section. Under the dependencies section, just write the package name SharedPreferences. After that you have to do the necessary thing, that is Flutter pub-get. As you can see, already the Flutter pub-get is running and the package is getting installed. So the package is getting installed. So what we have to do, we can close that prospect.yaml, clean that terminal, and we can run the project and see, and let's see how we can implement to deal with the local storage using the SharedPreferences. So for running the project, I run flutter run command. As we installed a new package in Flutter, and that will be connected, that is connected through our native code as well, it will take a time to download the Gradle configuration and build the Gradle configuration in the runtime. So guys, our project is started again, and let's use the SharedPreferences. For using the SharedPreferences, I make a new file here to local storage management dart, and here I make a class local storage management. Here I want to make two methods, store data and another method, get data. Okay, so that what that two method will does, one method store data will be responsible for storing the data in the local storage, get data will be responsible to retrieve the latest stored data from the local storage. How can we do that? For doing that, we have to take a parameter. For in that case, we want to store the latest number we achieve after clicking on so many of the plus, just like 6 we get after clicking some of the times, and we want to store that data in the local storage. How can we do that? For that, we have to take the parameter from the method of that class store data. So latest number. So we want to take the parameter latest data, and here what we have to do, we have to first import the package that we install, that is SharedPreferences. Okay. How can we store the data using the SharedPreferences? For that, you have to first take the instance object of SharedPreferences. How can we do that? We have to write final instance and await. So make it asynchronous and SharedPreferences.get instance. So what that is doing, store data is a method where we make the method as a asynchronous, because get instance, if you hover it here, you can see it is returning future of shared preferences. So but in the instance, if we hover it, it is getting the value of shared preferences. So how is that possible? Because we make the method as asynchronous, so that we can take the particular value without future. Okay, so async await is used for the asynchronous operation purpose. Okay, now if we want to store data, what we have to write? We have to write instance dot set. Here you can see many more of the method is present, just like boolean, double, int, string, string list. So you can store that kind of data, boolean, double, integer, string, string list. I now want to proceed with the set int, because we want to store a integer data, that is latest number. And here you have to give the two value. One is key, other is value. What is key and value in that case? That key you can compare with a map key, just like when we declare a map in our Flutter project, there is key and value. Every key is unique there, so you can consider that key with that similar map key. Okay, now I want to give the key as number, and here we want to store the data. We give here latest number. So that will help us to store the data in the local storage. And before that, we have to write await, because if you hover it here, you can see it, the set in method is future of bool, so it is a asynchronous method set int. So for that we have to write await before that. Okay, in the similar way, how can we get the latest data from the local storage? Okay, so that number will be stored in the local storage, but how can we get the data? For that we have to copy the same line and make the method as asynchronous, because SharedPreferences.get instance is a asynchronous method. Code reformat, and after that what we have to write instance dot get int. Why we write get int? Because when we store that latest number, we use the method set int. So when we store the method with the set int and we want to get the data, we have to write get int. So just like if you here use set string, now you have to use a get string. If you use a set bool, you have to use a get bool, just like similar of that fact. Okay, now I want to get the latest data of unique key, that is number. I copied it here and I pasted it. The get in method, as you can see, will be return a integer or null. So when it will return a integer or null, just like if the value will be get in the local storage, then it will return integer. If that value is not getting stored in the local storage, then it will be return null. Now it is not a future method, as you can see, it will be return that data type, so we don't have to use await. After that we can directly write latest number, because it will give us the latest number. Just return that. Okay, and one more thing, when we make a method asynchronous, we have to give the return type, wrap the data type with the future. Okay, now what we have to do, in the initialize method, let's make it constant. Okay, we can remove it here because that is no longer required here. Now in the initialize method, what we have to do, we have to call that method get data. So for getting call that method get data, we have to first make the object of that class and then we can call it. Instead of that, what we can do, we make that two methods static. So when we make any method under a class static, we can call that method with that class name. Okay, now I can directly call that method with that class name, local storage management. So I just copy the class name and here I write here, I have to import it, import library local storage management, and then we have to store the data. And what data we have to store? sorry, I make a mistake. We don't have to store the data, we have to get the data, because here the storing operation will not work. Here we have to get the data. So what data we want to get? So there is no parameter here, so it will the key of number, it is taking automatically, so we don't have to give any of the parameter. But as you can notice here, it will return future of int, as we described here. So what we have to do, we make this method asynchronous because we are going to use await before that, because that will return a future. So we want to take the particular value without the future so that we can get the assured value, so that will be return a latest number. Okay, now what we have to do, we have to check if latest number is null, then we don't have to proceed further, so we can return here so that next steps will be not repeated. So but if the latest number is not null, what we have to do, we have to insert that latest number coming from the local storage to that number variable, so that when we make a hot restart or after terminating the app, when we start the app, we can get the last value that we achieve in the last state. Okay, how can we do that? So that what we have to do, we have to write ShareState for update the widget, and in which variable number with latest number. Okay, so in that number variable, the latest number, that is the last state of the app, in the last state of the app, we achieve that latest number that is stored in the local storage, and we get the number. If the number is null, we can't give the permission to proceed further, that's why we are writing return. And if the number is not null, so it is coming here, and we assign that getting number from the local storage to that number variable, so that it will be show the last state we achieved before hot restart or terminating the project. Okay, now what we have to do, whenever we click here, we can see the number is increasing. We have to store the last state of number in the local storage. How can we do that? Very easy. We have to store the number in the local storage. So for that, what we can write, local storage management dot store data, and we have to pass that the latest data. Okay, and we can make the method as asynchronous, because as we know that stored data, if we go here, it is asynchronous method. Okay, so if I now hot reload it, and if I click on here, as you can see, the number is constantly increasing. Now let's see after the hot restart if we getting the latest number or not. So as of now, after clicking on so many times, we get the latest state with having a number of 40. After the hot restart, if the shared preferences work well, then we have to see 40, not 0. Okay, now we have to hot restart it here, and let's see if the shared preferences is working fine or not. Hot restart is done, but number is showing 40. You maybe think that maybe the hot restart is not working perfectly. So what we can do for that, what we can write here, integer number 2, I give the variable name here, and make it 0, and I also increase it here, number 2 plus plus, and what I want to do, I want to show the number in a column. So I wrapped it with a column, I copy it, make a next text widget, and we have to wrap it under the number 2. Before that 2 text widget, I make a significant page so that you can show it clearly. Height 50, and we want to show that at the middle of the screen, so we write main axis alignment dot center. If we want to hot reload it, you can show that latest number. So if I click on plus again and again, you can see both number is increasing by 1. Okay, now I reach a number just like 70. So after that hot restart, what happened, that 70 is stored in the local storage. So when the widget tree will be built from the scratch, for that method we written here, actually that initialize method, in case you don't know, that initialize method is calling from the init state. So before loading the widget tree, that method will be called and the operation will be performed here. So before building the widget tree through that initialize method, what we are doing, we are taking the latest data from the local storage. Maybe there is a possibility that the latest data is not present in the local storage. In case that will be returned null. So for if that will be returned null, we can return it. Otherwise, we can store that latest number we get from the local storage in the variable number, so that we can proceed from the last stored number in the local storage that is achieved by the last state. Okay, but for the number 2, we are not storing that number 2 in the local storage. Okay, so when we make a hot restart, we will not see the latest state that is achieved here. So the latest state achieved by the number 2 is 30. So when we make a hot restart, that 30 will be getting 0, but the 70 will be so, because 70, that number is stored in the local storage. When we hot restart it, that data will be coming from the local storage and set in the variable, so that it will be so there. But the number 2 we not stored in the local storage, so the latest state of that number will be not preserved in the local storage, and after the hot restart it will be getting 0. So let's see what happened after hot restart. After hot restart, you can see the latest state of that number is we can show, but the latest state of that number that is actually 30, we can't see it. Okay, so that means shared preference is working fine. One more thing we can test with the shared preference. I want to terminating the project, and then I will start the project from the scratch. Then we will see if that result is working or not. So before terminating the project, I increase some number here. So I make it up to 100, and the lowest number is 30. So after terminating the project, and when we want to start it, that 100 is stored in the local storage. So when we start the project from the scratch after terminating, that 100 number should be visible, but that 30 number should not be visible, because that latest state of that number is not stored in the local storage, so that will be so 0. So in the upper side that will be so 100, and in the place of 30 that will be so 0. If we want to terminate the project, and we already done that, and let's start the project again. Let's see if the shared preferences working or not. So we can see the output as upper side number is 100 and lower part number is 0. So shared preferences is working fine in our project. In the future, with all of the additional topic, we will use shared preferences a lot, and in case of many project that is coming in the series in future, we will use a lot that shared preferences. So make sure you can practice that in your own, so that you will be get comfortable in that. In case you have any doubt and query about the shared preferences, you can comment it out. I will try my best to solve that problem. Hope you love this video. If you love this video, don't forget to like, comment, share, and don't forget to subscribe this channel. The next video of the tutorial is coming very soon. Hope you stay safe. Have a nice day. Bye.